It was close to 3 a.m., the kind of hour when the world feels empty and even the moon seems tired. I was hauling a load of steel across Nevada, trying to fight the fatigue creeping behind my eyes. The CB radio crackled, just static, until I heard it. A voice, soft, desperate. "Help! Please! Someone, help me!" It came through so faintly I almost thought it was my imagination. I leaned closer to the speaker. "This is Truck 214, I said. "Who's calling?" The voice came again, trembling. I crashed. Mile marker 247. Please hurry, it's cold." My stomach dropped. Mile marker 247 was a lonely stretch I'd passed hundreds of times. No exits, no lights, no cell phone signal. I grabbed my flashlight, told dispatch I was stopping to check on an accident, and pulled onto the shoulder. When I stepped out, the wind hit me like ice. The desert stretched endless and black. I started walking. The beam from my flashlight cut through the dust, revealing tire marks leading off the road. Then I saw it, a car upside down in a shallow ditch. I ran to it. "Hello, you called for help?" The driver's seat was empty. The door hung open. The ground was dry, no footprints in the sand. My chest tightened. Maybe they'd wandered off looking for help. I reached for my radio. "Dispatch, I found the vehicle, but there's nobody here." Static. Then, that same voice. "I'm still here." I froze. The sound wasn't coming from the radio anymore. It was behind me. I turned, flashlight trembling in my hand. A woman stood by the road, long hair whipping in the wind, a white dress glowing faintly in the darkness. "I couldn't get out," she whispered. "I tried." I took a step back. "Mom, you need medical attention. Let's get you to..." She smiled sadly. "I've been waiting every night for someone to find me." The words hit me like a punch. I aimed the light at her face, but there was no one there, just the empty road. I ran back to the truck, slammed the door shut, and gunned the engine. My hands shook so hard I could barely hold the wheel. Then the radio came alive again. "Thank you for stopping." The voice was soft, fading like a sigh carried by the wind. The next morning, I told a state trooper what happened. He frowned and said, "Mile marker 247? That's where a woman died in a crash, winter of '83. We still get calls from drivers who swear they've seen her." I never took that route again, but sometimes late at night, when the radio crackles to life for no reason, I swear I still hear her whisper my name. I've been driving trucks for 20 years, and I've seen just about everything on America's highways. But nothing, and I mean nothing, comes close to what I saw near Route 9 outside Kansas. It was past midnight. My fuel gauge was flirting with empty, and I hadn't seen a gas station in over an hour. Then, like an answer to prayer, I spotted a flickering neon sign ahead. Miller's Gas and Service. The place looked old, straight out of the '60s, but the lights were on, and that was good enough for me. I pulled in. The pumps looked ancient, the kind that still had numbers that clicked mechanically. As I got out, I heard a bell ring from the shop door, and an old man stepped out. "Evening, driver," he said, tipping his hat. "You're out late." "Yeah," I laughed nervously. "I didn't think anyone was open this time of night." He smiled. "We're always open after midnight." That line should have been my first warning. While he filled the tank, I went inside to grab a coffee. The interior was strange. Old soda bottles, magazines from 1974, and a radio playing Elvis. The coffee pot was hot, but there was dust on everything. Thick dust. When I went to pay, the man rang up the total on an antique cash register. "That'll be $5.25, he said. I blinked. $5 for a full tank? He nodded slowly. "Prices never change here." Something in his eyes made my stomach twist. I handed him a 20, but he just waved it off. "Next time," he said. "Drive safe now." As I pulled away, I looked in my side mirror. The lights were fading, dimmer, smaller, until they disappeared completely. When I turned around to look again, the entire station was gone, just empty highway and weeds. I slammed the brakes. My heart raced. I turned back toward the fuel gauge. It showed full. I called another driver the next day and asked about Miller's gas and service. He went quiet for a long moment. You mean the one that burned down in '79? Nobody's been there for decades. I laughed nervously, but he didn't. They say old man Miller still shows up to help stranded truckers, only after midnight. Now, every time I drive through Kansas, I keep my eyes on the fuel gauge and pray I never see that neon sign There's again. Something about the open road that makes you feel both free and trapped at the same time. That night, I was somewhere between Texas and Oklahoma, the radio playing low just to keep me company. Then it happened, the static. I turned the dial thinking I'd lost signal, but instead of music I heard talking. Truck 309, can you hear us? It was clear, calm, like a dispatch call, only my call sign wasn't 309. This is Truck 214, I said. Who's on the line? Silence. Then a voice whispered through the static. Get off the road. I froze. Excuse me. Get off the road now. Before I could respond, headlights flashed in front of me. A deer jumped out of nowhere. I swerved hard and missed it by inches. My heart pounded as I pulled to the side, breathing heavily. When I picked up the mic again, I said, whoever that was, thanks. But there was no answer. Just faint music, an old country song. Over the next few nights, it happened again. Voices warning me. Once they said, slow down. Another time, bridge ahead is weak. And every time I listened, something dangerous happened right after. I tried tracing the frequency. My CB showed nothing, no transmission source. Then one night I heard something different. A woman's voice, soft, familiar. Hey honey, she said, you're driving too late again. I froze. My wife had died 3 years earlier. The air in the cab grew cold. Who is this? I whispered. I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you, but you need to stop driving this route. Tears filled my eyes. Why? Silence. Then, because this is where I died. The radio went dead. I sat there staring into the dark road ahead. My GPS blinked, and for the first time, I noticed the route number. It was the same one where her car had been hit years ago. I pulled over and turned off the truck. The night was still. The stars didn't move. I haven't turned on my CB radio since. But sometimes, when I drive alone, I still hear her voice in my head. And I wonder, maybe the dead aren't gone. Maybe they just found a different frequency. It was late, maybe 2 in the morning, and I was cruising down Highway 61. The kind of late where the world feels like it belongs only to you and the hum of your engine. The fog was so thick it was like driving through a cloud, my headlights just barely cutting through the gloom. And that's when I saw her, a figure on the shoulder of the road, a woman waving her arms frantically, like her life depended on it. I slowed down, my heart thumping a little faster. You hear stories, right? But the beams of my headlights caught her face for just a second, and all I saw was pure terror. She was pale, shivering, and looked completely lost. I couldn't just leave her there. So I rolled down the window, the cool, damp air rushing in. You okay, Mum? I called out. She looked up, her eyes wide and glassy. Please, she stammered, her voice thin and desperate. I need a ride. My car broke down. It's freezing out here. Something about her voice, the way it trembled, made me uneasy. It was a deep, primal kind of unease. But then I looked at her again, shivering in the fog, and my conscience got the better of me. What if she was really in trouble? I unlocked the door. Hop in. She climbed into the passenger seat, pulling the door shut with a soft click. She was clutching a small, worn-out purse to her chest, like it was a lifeline, like it held her entire world. The first thing I noticed was her dress. It was old-fashioned, the kind of floral print my grandma used to wear back in the 80s. Her hair was soaked, plastered to her forehead as if she'd been standing in a downpour. But that was the weird part. The road was bone dry. There hadn't been a drop of rain all night. I put the truck in drive and pulled back onto the empty highway. "Where are you headed?" I asked, trying to sound casual, trying to break the heavy silence that had filled the cab. She stared straight ahead into the swirling fog, her voice barely a whisper. "Just a few miles up. Home." We drove on, the only sounds being the tires on the pavement and the low rumble of the engine. The silence from her was unnatural. She didn't fidget, didn't shiver anymore, just sat there staring forward. Every now and then, I'd glance over and I'd catch this faint smile on her lips, almost as if she was lost in a happy memory. It was unsettling. I reached over and turned the radio down. The quiet felt more honest. "So, what happened to your car?" I asked, trying to fill the space again. She hesitated, the small smile vanishing. "It wasn't the car," she said, her voice hollow. "It was me." A cold spike of adrenaline shot through me. What did that even mean? I forced a nervous laugh. "What? You mean you ran out of gas or something?" She slowly turned her head and looked at me for the first time. Her eyes seemed to look right through me. "No," she said softly. I didn't make it home." Before my brain could even process what she'd just said, before I could ask the 100 questions screaming in my mind, her expression softened. "You're kind," she said, her voice now clear and warm. "You didn't have to stop." I managed a weak, awkward smile. "Well, it's what anyone would do, right?" She just nodded slowly. "No, not everyone does." And then silence again. A complete, heavy, suffocating silence. I turned my eyes back to the road for just a few seconds, trying to focus on the white lines disappearing into the fog. But the feeling in the truck was wrong. The air felt heavy, charged. I glanced back to the passenger seat to say something, anything, and she was gone. Just gone. The seat was empty. The seatbelt was still buckled. There was no sound of the door opening, no rush of wind, no movement at all. 1 second she was there, and the next she had vanished into thin air. My hands started trembling, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. My heart was a drum against my ribs. I slammed on the brakes, the truck skidding to a stop on the empty highway. "Hello?" I yelled, my voice cracking. I threw the passenger door open, leaning out and scanning the darkness. Nothing, just the eerie fog, swallowing the sound of my own frantic breathing. Then I saw it. On the now empty passenger seat, there was a small folded piece of paper. It hadn't been there before. My hand was shaking as I reached for it. It felt ancient, brittle. I carefully unfolded it. Inside, written in neat, elegant handwriting, were 3 words. "Thank you, Sam." My blood ran cold. The world tilted. Sam, that's my name, but I hadn't told her. I never said my name. I stumbled out of the truck, looking around wildly, my mind screaming. The fog was thicker now, pressing in on all sides. That's when I saw the headlights. Another car, approaching slowly from behind me. It was an old police cruiser, the kind you see in small towns. It pulled up alongside my truck, and an older officer with a tired face rolled down his window. "Everything all right, driver? You're stopped in the middle of the road." I could barely get the words out. My voice was shaking so bad. I picked up a woman. Back there. She just vanished. Right out of my truck. The officer's expression changed. The professional weariness was replaced by something else. Something knowing. "Describe her," he said, his voice low. So I did. The old-fashioned dress, the soaked hair, the desperate look in her eyes. He listened patiently, then let out a long, heavy sigh. "Son, you're not the first," he said, shaking his head. "That stretch of road back there, mile marker 42, there was a terrible wreck there, maybe 20 years ago. A young woman died on her way home from a dance, never made it. Her description, it matches yours, to a T." He told me they get a call like this every few years. A driver spooked out of their mind, swearing they picked up a ghost. I still drive that route for work sometimes. I have to. And every single time I pass mile marker 42, a cold spot develops in the cab, right there in the passenger seat. The air gets heavy, the temperature drops, and I swear, if I listen close enough, I can almost hear a whisper on the wind, carried through the fog. Thank you, Sam. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have any of your own unexplained experiences on the road, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more strange tales. Stay safe out there. 10 years ago, I saw something I can't unsee. A car crash, so brutal it burned itself into my memory. A silver sedan flipped upside down, flames lighting up the night sky. I stopped my rig, ran to help, but it was too late. The driver was gone before I even reached the door. For years, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I took the same route hundreds of times, always slowing down at that exact spot. The wreck was long cleared, the road repaved, but the memory never left. Then one night, it came back. I was hauling timber through the same highway when I saw it. Headlights in the ditch, smoke, the exact same car, the exact same way it had looked 10 years ago. I slammed the brakes, jumped out and ran. My boots hit the dirt, but as I got closer, the smoke vanished. The car was gone. Nothing there but tire tracks that ended in the grass. I told myself I was tired, hallucinating, but the next night it happened again. Same place, same wreck. The third night, I decided to record it. I set up my phone on the dash, rolling as I passed the curve. Midnight on the dot, the glow appeared again, flames flickering in the distance. I pulled over, trembling, whispering to the camera, "It's happening again." When I reached the ditch, the car door was open this time. A faint smell of gasoline hung in the air. I leaned in, shining my flashlight, and saw something on the driver's seat. A photograph. Burnt edges. It was me standing beside my truck from that same night 10 years ago. My phone slipped from my hand. I stumbled back, gasping for air. That's when I heard it, the screech of metal, the sound of impact behind me. I turned, and the car was there again, crashing in real time, flames bursting out, the driver's head hitting the wheel. I could see his face clearly now. It was mine. I screamed and fell backward. The flames engulfed the car, and then just like that it was gone. Silent. Empty. The next morning I checked the footage on my phone. The video was still rolling, but there was nothing there. Just an empty highway. No flames, no car, no me. Now every night at midnight, no matter where I am, my radio cuts out for exactly 30 seconds. Static fills the cab. And somewhere deep inside that static I can hear it, the sound of twisting metal over and over. I've stopped driving that route. But somehow, that crash still finds me. I've picked up my fair share of hitchhikers over the years, drifters, backpackers, lost kids running from something. But this one was different. It was a lonely stretch of Arizona highway. The sun had set hours ago, and I was running on caffeine and static from the radio. That's when I saw him, standing by the road, thumb out, smiling like he knew me. I slowed down, rolled down the window. "Where you headed, buddy?" He leaned in, and I swear I felt the temperature drop. "Wherever you're going, Sam." I froze. "Wait, how do you know my name?" He grinned wider. "You told me once." "I've never seen you before," I said, forcing a laugh. He just nodded. "Yeah, you said that last time too." Something about his calm voice made the hairs on my neck stand up, but I let him in anyway. Dumbest thing I've ever done. We rode in silence for a few miles. Then he started humming, an old song my father used to sing, a song I hadn't heard since his funeral. "You like that tune," he said. "Your dad sang it to you when you were 7, right? The night the storm took out the power." My hands tightened on the wheel. "How do you know that?" He just smiled. "You told me." I laughed nervously. "You must have read my mind." He turned toward me, eyes dark as tar. Not your mind, your story. That's when I noticed his reflection in the side mirror. He wasn't there, just the empty seat beside me. I turned and he was gone. Panic hit me. I slammed the brakes and jumped out. Nothing but wind and the rumble of my idling truck. When I climbed back in, the passenger seat was covered in dust. But something was resting on top, a small, leather-bound notebook. I opened it, page after page filled with handwriting. My handwriting, every line describing moments from my life, private things, things no one could know. And the last page? You will meet him again soon. I threw the book out the window and floored it down the highway, heart pounding. A few hours later, I pulled into a diner. My waitress smiled politely. "Coffee, hun?" I nodded, still shaking. When she brought the cup, I noticed the name tag on her chest. It read, Sam. She smiled the exact same way the hitchhiker had. "You look tired," she said softly. "Long road tonight?" I froze, unable to speak. She leaned in just a little closer. "Don't worry, you'll remember me next time."